चलो. Now बच्चों, let's talk about breathing and respiration. Okay, so what is breathing? Tell me. We inhale and exhale, right? Inhalation and exhalation. We are taking in air and we are giving out air. So we are, okay. Chalo. So बच्चों, what is breathing? Breathing is basically taking enough air and giving out air. Inhalation and exhalation. Now tell me, in the biomolecules topic you discussed, we did not talk about digestive system because that portion is deleted. But बच्चों, we need carbohydrates to survive, right? I don't know if you follow those diet plans where they are like 0 calorie diet, 0 carb diet. Never ever follow that. We need carbohydrates to survive. All the complex carbohydrates are ultimately broken down into glucose. And this glucose is the respiratory substrate, which after its breakdown ultimately produces ATP. Right? And this process is called as cellular respiration. It is a biochemical process which involves the breakdown of glucose to release energy in the form of ATP. This ATP will be further utilized in metabolic processes, right? Like respiration, excretion, etc. Is this clear, bacho? So, for every person, depending on the gender, age and all, there is a minimum requirement of 2000 to 2500 kilocalories per day, bacho. You know कि the energy released is measured in the form of kilocalories, and all of us require somewhere around 2000 to 2500 kilocalories, and that we will get from carbohydrates. If we don't eat carbohydrates, body will have to use other sources as respiratory substrate like proteins and fats, and their breakdown will produce ATP, but along with that they will produce toxic metabolites also that will cause harm to our body. Okay. What is cellular respiration? It is a biochemical process. What is breathing, bache? It is a physical process. Now, in the air that we take in, out of that, oxygen is filtered out and carbon dioxide is given out, right? So that oxygen, bacho, where is that oxygen involved? That oxygen is involved in the cellular respiration process. In the process of breakdown of glucose to ultimately produce ATP, oxygen is involved because we are aerobic organisms. Anaerobic organisms can produce ATP in the absence of oxygen, but since we are aerobic, we require oxygen to produce ATP. So in some primitive groups of animals like sponges, coelentrates and flatworm, no special respiratory organ is present. They simply respire through the general body surface. Okay, diffusion happens. Annelids which contain earthworm, diffusion through moist cuticles. Insects, if they are terrestrial, then tracheal tubes are present. This is also seen in cockroach. Aquatic arthropods, insects also belong to phylum Arthropoda. Now, if an animal is waterborne, generally gills are present for their breathing or respiration, and this kind of respiration is called as branchial respiration. And those animals that use lungs for respiration, that kind of respiration is called as pulmonary respiration. Okay, just remember the terms here. Branchial respiration that involves gills, and pulmonary respiration that involves lungs. Have lungs for pulmonary respiration. Now, but you remember, just like hepatic term is there for liver, anything to do with liver, hepatic term is there. Cardiac term is there, that is anything to do with heart. Similarly, anything to do with lungs, the term used is pulmonary. Okay, so fishes use gills for respiration. Amphibians have everything. They can use gills, they can use lungs, they can also respire through their mouth. That is buccopharyngeal respiration. Reptile, birds and mammals, they generally, if they are airborne, terrestrial, then they will respire through their lungs. Chalo. Now moving on to the main topic, that is the human respiratory system. Tell me, bacho, it all starts here, right? The human respiratory system starts here, that is from the external nostrils. Everyone agrees now? Then these external nostrils lead to a chamber, a nasal cavity or a nasal chamber that is lined by hair to trap the dust particles. Nasal cavity or chamber. Then this nasal cavity leads into internally also two openings are there, bacho. Those two openings are called as internal nostrils or concave. Now from the internal nostrils, the common passage for food and air is there, that is pharynx. Pharynx, the common passage for food and air. I have a little bit more to discuss about it. Later I will talk about it. And the pharynx, bacho, it is divided into three parts. Pharynx, the initial part of the pharynx which opens after the internal nostrils is called as nasopharynx. Nasopharynx leads to the oropharynx which is present just after the opening of the food pipe, and then the oropharynx ultimately leads to laryngopharynx. This laryngopharynx finally opens into the voice box or the larynx. So if you place, when I'm talking now, if you place your finger here, or when you are talking, if you place your finger on your throat, you can feel it vibrating. That is because of the larynx. Larynx is a cartilaginous structure which contains vocal cords, and that vocal cords vibrate, ultimately leading to the production of sound. This larynx, it leads to the windpipe or trachea. And if this is the windpipe now, and consider this to be the lungs, everyone knows now we have a pair of lungs. So this trachea will enter into the lungs, and before entering it will branch out into two structures. This branching out is called as primary right and left bronchi. This primary right and left bronchi will further branch out inside the lungs, and it will form secondary, tertiary, initial, and finally terminal bronchioles. These are simply the branchings, bacho. Okay. So the primary bronchi will divide further inside the lungs, and it will form the secondary, tertiary, initial and terminal bronchioles. Tell me, so far have I discussed anywhere about the exchange of gases? Simply till now the gas has simply been, or the air has simply been entering inside the respiratory tract, right? This, now we will talk about the actual exchange of gases which will happen after the terminal bronchioles. This terminal bronchioles lead into respiratory bronchioles, and this respiratory bronchiole further continues into alveolar sac and duct, and finally they form vascularized, or a structure that is richly supplied with blood vessels, a bag-like structure richly supplied with blood vessels, that is called as alveoli. Okay, and this entire portion that I have written in blue, bacho, this is called as the exchange zone, because this is the area where the actual exchange of gases happens. That is, the oxygen from the atmospheric air will enter inside the body, the blood vessels, and the carbon dioxide which has been present in the blood vessels will be dumped into the alveoli, which will ultimately lead to the exit from the body through exhalation. And this entire portion that I have written in red, bachu, this is called as the conducting zone. Conducting zone simply conducts the air. It does not get involved in uh, the exchange of gases. Whereas the exchange zone or the respiratory zone is the part of the respiratory system which is actually involved in the exchange of gases. Is this clear so far? Larynx, trachea, the bronchi and the bronchioles, still here. All the portions that I have marked in asterisk, bacho, they are cartilaginous structures.